Storm over Warlock, Chapter 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by R.J. Davis. Storm over Warlock, Chapter 3. To close ranks. Shan made his way at an angle to avoid the smoking pit cradling the wreckage of the Terran ship. There were no signs of life about the Trog plate as he approached. A quarter of its bulk was telescoped back into the rest, and surely none of the aliens could have survived such a smash, tough as they were reputed to be, with those horny carapaces serving them in place of more vulnerable human skin. He sniffed. There was a noxious odor heavy on the morning air, one which would make a lasting impression on any human nose. The port door in the black ship stood open, perhaps having burst in the impact against the cliff. Shan had almost reached it when a crackle of chain lightning beat across the ground before him, turning the edge of the buckled entrance panel red. Shan dropped to the ground, drawing his stunner, knowing at the same moment that such a weapon was about as much use in meeting a blaster as a straw wand would be to ward off a blazing coal. A chill numbness held him as he waited for a second blast to char the flesh between his shoulders. So there had been a Trog survivor after all. But as moments passed and the Trog did not move in to make an easy kill, Shan collected his wits. Only one shot? Was the beetle injured, unable to make sure of even an almost defenseless prey? The Trogs seldom took prisoners. When they did... The Terran's lips tightened. He worked his hand under his prone body, feeling for the hilt of his knife. With that, he could speedily remove himself from the status of Trog prisoner, and he would do it gladly if there was no hope of escape. Had there been only one charge left in that blaster? Shan could make half a dozen guesses as to why the other had made no move, but that shot had come from behind him, and he dared not turn his head or otherwise make an effort to see what the other might be doing. Was it only his imagination, or had that stench grown stronger during the last few seconds? Could the Trog be creeping up on him? Shan strained his ears, trying to catch some sound he could interpret. The few clack-clacks that had survived the blast above the ship were shrieking overhead, and Shan made one attempt at counterattack. He whistled the wolverine's call. The pair had not been too willing to follow him down into this valley, and they had avoided the crater at a very wide circle. But if they would obey him now, he just might have a chance. There. That had been a sound, and the smell was stronger. The Trog must be coming to him. Again Shan whistled, holding in his mind his hatred for the beetle head, the need for finishing off that alien. If the animals could pick either thoughts or emotions out of their human companion, this was the time for him to get those unspoken half-orders across. Shan slammed his hand hard against the ground, sent his body rolling, his stunner up and ready. And now he could see that grotesque thing, swaying weakly back and forth on its thin legs, yet holding a blaster, bringing that weapon up to center it on him. The Trog was hunched over, and perhaps to Taggy presented the outline of some four-footed creature to be hunted, for the wolverine male sprang for the horn-shelled shoulders. Under that impact, that Trog sagged forward. But Taggy, outraged at the nature of creature he had attacked, squalled and retreated. Shan had his precious seconds of distraction. He fired, the core of the stun beam striking full into the flat dish of the alien's face. That bolt, which would have shocked a mammal into insensibility, only slowed the Trog. Shan rolled again, gaining a temporary cover behind the wrecked ship. He squirmed under metal hot enough to scorch his jacket, and saw the reflection of a second blaster shot which had been fired seconds late. Now the Trog had him tied down, but to get at the Terran, the alien would have to show himself, and Shann had one chance in 50, which was better than that of 3 minutes ago when the odds had been set at 1 in 100. He knew that he could not press the wolverines in again. Taggy's distaste was too manifest. Shann had been lucky that the animal had made one abortive attack. Perhaps the Terran's escape and Taggy's action had made the alien reckless. Shann had no clue to the thinking process of the non-human, and now the Trog staggered around the end of the plate, his digits, which were closer to claws than fingers, fumbling with his weapon. The Terran snapped another shot from his stunner, hoping to slow the enemy down, but he was trapped. If he turned to climb the cliff at his back, the beetle head could easily pick him off. A rock hurtled from the heights above, striking with deadly accuracy on the domed, hairless head of the Trog. His armored body crashed forward, struck against the ship, and rebounded to the ground. Shann darted forward to seize the blaster, kicking loose the claws which still grasped it. Before he flattened back to the cliff, the strange weapon over his arm, his heart beating wildly. The rock had not bounded down the mountainside by chance. It had been hurled with intent and aimed carefully at its target. And no Trog would kill one of his fellows. Or would he? Suppose orders had been issued to take a Terran prisoner and the Trog by the ship had disobeyed. Then why a rock and not a blaster bolt? Shann edged along until the upslanted broken side of the Trog flyer provided him with protection from an overhead attack. Under that shelter he waited for the next move from its unknown rescuer. The clack-clacks wheeled closer to Earth. One lit boldly on the carapace of the inert Trog, shuffling ungainly along that horny ridge. Cradling the blaster, the Terran continued to wait. His patience was rewarded when that investigating clack-clack took off, uttering an enraged snap or two. He heard what might be the scrape of boots across rock, but that might also have come from horny skin meeting stone. Then the other must have lost his footing not too far above. Accompanied by a miniature landslide of stones and earth, a figure slid down several yards away. Shann waited in a half crouch, his looted blaster covering the man now getting to his feet. There was no mistaking the familiar uniform, or even the man. How Ragnar Thorvald had reached that particular spot on Warlock, or why, Shann could not know. But that he was there was no denying. Shann hurried forward. It had been when he caught his first sight of Thorvald that he realized just how deep its unacknowledged loneliness had bit. There were 2 Terrans on Warlock now, and he did not need to know why. But Thorvald was staring back at him with the blankness of non-recognition. "Who are you?" The demand held something close to suspicion. That note in the other's voice wiped away a measure of Shann's confidence, threatened something which had flowered in him since he had struck into the wilderness on his own. 3 words had reduced him again to Lantee, unskilled laborer. "Lantee, I'm from the camp." Thorvald's eagerness was plain in his next question. "How many of you got away? Where are the rest?" He gazed past Shann at the plateau slope as if he expected to see the personnel of the camp sprout out of the cloak of grass along the verge. "Just me and the wolverines," Shann answered in a colorless voice. He cradled the blaster on his hip, turned a little away from the officer. "You and the wolverines?" Thorvald was plainly startled. "But where? How?" "The Trogs hit very early yesterday morning. They caught the rest in camp. The wolverines had escaped from their cage, and I was out hunting them." He told his story baldly. "You're sure about the rest?" Thorvald had a thin steel of rage edging his voice. Almost, Shann thought, as if he could turn that blade of rage against one Shann Lantee for being yet alive when more important men